the last presentation of the morning session is going to be the mastermind behind the whole seminar. So Rauli has been smart enough to have said it so that he has the last word. But yeah, for you who don't know, Rauli Partanen is an independent writer, energy analyst that has published 4 books already, or 4? Yeah, 4 finished books, and now the most recent work is available on the tables there, and I think that's what we're going to hear about next. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, and thanks for everybody showing up. It would have been embarrassing to be here alone. Maybe says something about me that I have to organize a seminar just to get to present something to people. But I'll be talking a little bit first about the heat market, maybe some liquid fuels, and then I'm gonna have a few words about the small book that you have on the table. Yeah, and I'm gonna take an European perspective because that's like, well, we are in the European Union, and I feel myself as a member of the European community as well. So the heat market of the European Union is around 6,000 terawatt hours per year. That's surprisingly a lot. In Finland, we use final energy in like about 300, so that's like 5% of the total European heat market. And it's divided like this. About half is space heating. Then you have a third is industrial processes, and the rest is like hot water use and some other uses. And I'm sad to say that most of the heat that we use is produced by burning stuff. Mostly fossil fuels, but also biomass. It's more than 85% of the heat comes from burning, and the rest is made with electricity, which is also often made by burning, and some renewables. And if you look at the process heat perspective, it gets even more terrifying. That's about 95% is made with burning fuels. And there's a, how you divide what kind of temperatures we are looking at. About half, so 1,000 terawatt hours, is over 500 degrees Celsius. And then there is 200 to 500 degrees, about 11%, and so on. You can check it out. And about 5% of this is made with electricity. So you can, I mean, there's not many ways to make that high temperatures without either burning fuels or splitting atoms. That's just a physical fact. I mean, okay, you can use concentrated solar, but in industrial processes, you often need a reliable, like 24/7 sort of. So you would need to have, I would say, too much storage to make it efficient and competitive. And yeah, I've been following the energy discussion in Europe for years, and almost nobody talks about the heat. Everybody talks about electricity. And like we learned in the first presentation, it's about 1/5 of the global end energy use. So we need to also address the rest, the 80%, which is primarily liquid fuels and heat. Okay, so this is sort of a bridge to the next session as well, where we talk about how we could produce that heat with advanced nuclear reactors. And then to the case study I made for this. This idea came like a half a year ago, and then I just ran with it, wrote it and did the studies. I'm happy to get feedback. If you read it, send me email, call me, whatever. So in the case study, I looked at the Helsinki Metropolitan area, which includes Espoo, Vantaa, Kauniainen, and some other areas. And the assumed energy use in 2050 is, as you can see in the picture, 12 terawatt hours of power, 8 terawatt hours of heat, mainly district heating. And then liquid fuels, that's hydrogen. So I'm not taking the step of making actual fuels from the hydrogen. That's like the need for raw material that you could use to make methanol or gasoline or methane, or maybe use as a hydrogen if that we have the sufficient cars by then. And here you can see how the energy use is split by month in the Helsinki area. And especially interesting is this green bar, which is the heat. So you can have 5 times larger heat demand in the winter than in the summer. This is like 350 megawatts. And in the winter you can have actually much larger, but this is even for a monthly average. So that's a hard problem to solve, how you can load follow that amount of seasonal variation in demand. And electricity it's a little bit less variative, but still it can be 50% larger in the winter. So this is what I started with the study, how to solve this sort of problem and do it without burning fuels. And I came up with one way. I mean, everybody knows that nuclear reactors are not very cheap, right? Even if they might get cheaper, they're still not like cheap. You want to run them all the time to get maximum produced from them. So one way to do the load following is with electrolyzers to make the hydrogen, okay? So in the scenario I made in the study, the winter times is that the reactors produce almost only combined heat and power, running full steam. And from the spring months to the autumn, you use the excess capacity to run the electrolyzers to make hydrogen that you can replace liquid fuels. Okay, this might sound like a bit like Fantasyland thing, but this is actually something that we have to look into really hard. And yeah, it just sort of describes the radicality of the change that we need to see, that this we have to take this kind of thing seriously. And I found this technology that's been developed also here in Finland in VTT, Finnish Research Institute, of high temperature steam electrolysis. You use higher temperatures, usually 600 to 900 degrees Celsius, and then you run an electrolyzer there, and you get much more hydrogen per electricity that you use. Normally, electrolyzer efficiency is about maybe 60%, but with this, you can have about 90% efficiency from electricity to hydrogen. That's a huge improvement. Of course, you need to add the high quality heat as well, but still, it's big. And like I said before, electrolyzers, the projected cost for these high temperature steam electrolyzers is about 10 to 20% of a nuclear reactor. So it's much cheaper to have those doing the load following, seasonal load following than reactors. So these are the two positive outcomes from that. So nuclear is able to run basically at full power all the time. And we also get hydrogen to replace liquid fuels in transportation. And this is actually a picture of the total thermal capacity of the nuclear reactors. There's combined heat and power. So in winter, it's almost only that. And in summer, about half of the capacity is used for making hydrogen. But the capacity factor of the nuclear reactors is about 93%. So it's about as high as you can get with maintenance and stuff like that. So here's some key numbers from the report. Like I said, the metropolitan area of Helsinki would need about 4,000 megawatt of thermal nuclear capacity. So that's about the same size as Olkiluoto 3 reactor. But it would have to be high temperature reactors, so you can use it to make the hydrogen. And we're going to run it at more than 90% capacity factor. And this is one interesting finding as well. When you use nuclear for combined heat and power, you get much more value per capacity than with doing just electricity. I mean, if you produce electricity in a reactor, that's like 35% efficient. But if you also produce heat, and even if you produce hydrogen, you still get very high usage from the reactors. So it might be interesting from an economical perspective, even without the urgency to clean up the energy system. And the report has a electrolyzer total capacity of about 650 megawatts, and they get to be used about 70% of the time. So it's not great, but it's not horrible either. I mean, if you do the same with wind and solar, it's going to be 30%. So that's, I mean, you could do that as well, but it's going to mean more expensive hydrogen in the end. And that hydrogen will be less able to replace liquid fuels or feedstocks in chemical industry. So when I started making that report, I was not sure what it would end up like. I kind of studied and made it up on the way. And it seems that it could offer a quite interesting and viable pathway. I'm not saying that you should do it like 100% nuclear. That's not going to happen. I mainly did 100% nuclear because it's much simpler in Excel. I mean, if I started adding wind and then maybe get the average production per month, and then I would still be drawing that Excel sheet at home and not be here. So that's why it's 100% nuclear, because it was very simple to do, and it gets the point across, maybe in a little bit blunt way, but it gets it across. So I propose that anyone who is interested in that reads that small book or the PDF. It's going to be available in the Ecomodernist website about now. And see what you can come up with. If you have some ideas, and let's keep talking. Give your ideas to me and ask questions, and maybe keep a discussion going about it, how we could get more information on these possibilities, if they are as nice as they seem. I have one more slide, sort of a bit detour. So if nuclear is so great, why doesn't it show in the roadmaps and scenarios that we get from all different sources? This is the reason. It's not included. It's like, okay, we're going to do a scenario, but nuclear is not going to be in it. Because if it were, this is what happens. It fills quite a bit of the scenario. This is from, I think, Canada. Some scenario, there's other examples. So the reason that we are not getting the nuclear into the discussion is that it's not allowed to be there. And then people are thinking that, okay, yeah, but if nuclear was great, then it would show up in these roadmaps. But I mean, it's just not there. And here's another on the costs of the decarbonization. That's the nuclear scenario. It's the cheapest because it sort of fills. So again, I don't want to propose that we go all nuclear, but I do propose that we include it in the discussion in a serious way. It has a lot to offer, and especially also outside the power sector. Yeah, that's my share.
Thank you, Rauli. Looking forward to reading your pamphlet.